Political debts and public drama. The sun hung low over the manicured lawns of Mar-a-Lago, casting golden streaks across the palm trees that swayed gently in the Florida breeze. Inside the opulent estate, the air was thick with the scent of polished mahogany and ambition. Donald J. Trump, the 47th President of the United States, sat at the head of a long, gleaming table in one of his private dining rooms. His trademark navy suit was immaculate, his red tie a bold slash of color against the crisp white shirt. Around him, a small cadre of advisors and aides sipped coffee, their faces a mix of exhaustion and anticipation. It was July 27, 2025, and the political machine was already grinding for the next cycle, even as the echoes of the 2024 election still reverberated. At the far end of the table sat Karoline Leavitt, the youngest White House press secretary in history at just 27 years old. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail, and her sharp eyes scanned a tablet screen, her fingers tapping nervously. She was a rising star in the Republican Party, a fierce defender of Trump's agenda, and a media darling for her quick wit and unapologetic loyalty. But today, her usual confidence seemed tempered by a shadow of unease. The room buzzed with the low hum of conversation, but all eyes turned to Trump as he leaned forward, his hands clasped, his expression a mix of glee and calculation. "Folks, we've got a situation," Trump began, his voice carrying that familiar cadence that could fill a stadium or a boardroom with equal ease. "A tremendous situation, really. The Democrats, they're in a mess. A big, beautiful mess. Kamala Harris, you know, she raised $1 billion, can you believe that? $1 billion. And now, they're saying she's in debt. $20 million in debt. It's a disgrace, folks, an absolute disaster." The room chuckled, a few heads nodding in agreement. Trump's knack for turning a rival's misfortune into a spectacle was unmatched, and his team knew it. He leaned back in his chair, a smirk playing on his lips. "And I said to myself, you know what? In the name of unity, because I'm all about unity, folks, I'm gonna offer to help. We're gonna help Kamala Harris pay off her debts. It's the right thing to do. The American thing to do." The advisors exchanged glances, some amused, others skeptical. Stephen Miller, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, leaned forward, his expression intense. "Sir, it's a brilliant move. It puts Harris on the defensive, makes her look weak, and keeps the narrative on her campaign's failure. We can spin it as magnanimity while highlighting their incompetence." "Exactly, Stephen, exactly," Trump said, pointing a finger. "It's like the art of the deal. You give a little, you get a lot. We'll make it look like we're the good guys, and she's the one who blew $1 billion on fancy concerts and podcasts that nobody watched. I mean, come on, $1 million to Oprah. What were they thinking?" The room erupted in laughter, but Karoline Leavitt's smile was tight. She shifted in her seat, her eyes darting to her tablet again. Trump noticed, his gaze narrowing slightly. "Karoline, you're quiet today. What's going on? You're usually my pit bull out there with the press. Something bothering you?" Karoline straightened, her voice steady but careful. "No, sir, just preparing for the briefing. The media's going to come at us hard on this one. They'll try to twist it, say you're mocking Harris instead of helping." "Let 'em twist," Trump said, waving a hand. "The fake news always twists. But we've got the truth on our side. And speaking of truth, Karoline, I heard something interesting today. Something about your campaign back in 22. Some debts, maybe. Care to enlighten us?" The room went silent. Karoline's face paled, but she held Trump's gaze. The others shifted uncomfortably, sensing the shift in the air. It was no secret that Karoline's 2022 congressional run in New Hampshire's 1st District had ended in defeat against Democrat Chris Pappas. What wasn't widely known, until recently, was the financial mess that lingered in its wake. "Mr. President," Karoline began, her voice measured, my campaign team is addressing some discrepancies in the FEC filings. It's a technical issue, nothing more. We're working with the FEC to resolve it. Trump raised an eyebrow, his expression unreadable. Discrepancies, huh? I heard it's more than that. $326,370, Karoline. That's what they're saying you owe. And you didn't disclose it for 3 years? That's not a discrepancy, that's a problem. A big problem. Karoline's jaw tightened, but she didn't flinch. Sir, with all due respect, the campaign committee is handling it. The candidate isn't personally responsible for those debts. It's being sorted out. Trump leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial tone. I like you, Karoline. You're tough, you're smart, you're loyal. But this? This is the kind of thing the fake news loves. They'll eat you alive, and they'll try to drag me down with you. We can't have that. Not when we're winning. The room remained tense, the advisors avoiding eye contact. Karoline nodded slowly. I understand, sir. I'll make sure it's handled. Good, Trump said, leaning back. Because we've got bigger fish to fry. Like Kamala Harris and her $20 million disaster. Let's get to work, folks. I want this story everywhere. X, Truth Social, every network that's not fake news. Let's make it big. As the meeting adjourned, Karoline lingered, her tablet still open to a news article from Notice. The headline blared, Trump's White House press secretary reveals her failed campaign spent $200,000 in illicit contributions. The article detailed how her 2022 campaign had amended 17 FEC filings, revealing $326,370 in unpaid debts, including $200,000 in excessive contributions that should have been refunded within 60 days under federal law. The End Citizens United group had filed a complaint in 2022, and the recent filings seemed to confirm their allegations. Worse, the article suggested that fundraising to settle these debts could create a glaring conflict of interest for her role as press secretary. Karoline's mind raced. She'd known the filings were coming, but she hadn't expected them to hit the news so fast, or so hard. Her campaign treasurer, Robert Phillips III, had assured her the amendments were routine, a correction of double filing errors. But the media wasn't buying it, and neither, it seemed, was Trump. She needed to get ahead of this, and fast. Across the country, in a sleek San Francisco hotel, Kamala Harris stood at a podium, addressing the Emerge 20th Anniversary Gala. The room was filled with Democratic donors, activists, and strategists, all still reeling from the 2024 election loss. Harris's speech was fiery, her voice carrying the cadence of a prosecutor making her closing argument. Instead of advancing America's highest ideals, she said, we are witnessing a wholesale abandonment of those ideals. But we cannot let fear silence us. Courage is contagious. The crowd applauded, but there was an undercurrent of frustration. The election had been a bruising defeat, and the financial fallout was still unfolding. Politico had reported that her campaign, despite raising over $1 billion, had ended with at least $20 million in debt. The figure was staggering, and the media was having a field day. Trump's offer to help with the debt, posted on Truth Social, was the latest jab, dripping with sarcasm and designed to humiliate. Backstage, Harris's campaign manager, Jen O'Malley Dillon, paced with a phone pressed to her ear. No, we're not taking Trump's bait, she snapped. It's a stunt, and we're not going to dignify it with a response. Focus on the vendors. Get them paid, and let's move on. But moving on wasn't so simple. The campaign had spent heavily, $880 million by October 16, according to FEC filings, including six-figure sums on events like Harris's Call Her Daddy podcast appearance, which had drawn fewer than 1 million views. Donors were furious, with some, like DNC fundraiser Lindy Lee, calling it an epic disaster. The narrative of mismanagement was sticking, and Trump's trolling only amplified it. Harris stepped off the stage to polite applause, her smile unwavering but her eyes tired. She knew the debt story was a distraction, but it was one she couldn't ignore. As she shook hands with attendees, her mind drifted to Trump's press secretary, Karoline Leavitt. The young woman's own financial scandal was making waves, and Harris saw an opportunity. If Trump wanted to play dirty, she could play smarter. Back at the White House, Karoline faced the press corps in the briefing room, her expression composed but her nerves on edge. The room was packed, cameras flashing, reporters jostling for position. She'd prepared for questions about Trump's tariff policies and the latest DOGE initiatives, but she knew the real ambush was coming. Sure enough, a reporter from Notice stood up. "Ms. Leavitt, can you comment on the recent FEC filings from your 2022 campaign? They show $326,370 in unpaid debts, including $200,000 in excessive contributions that weren't disclosed for 3 years. How do you respond to allegations of violating campaign finance laws?" Karoline gripped the podium, her knuckles whitening. "The amendments to my campaign's FEC filings are a routine correction of administrative errors," she said, her voice steady. "My campaign team is working closely with the FEC to resolve these issues, which do not involve me personally. I'm focused on serving the American people as White House press secretary, not revisiting a campaign from 3 years ago." The reporter pressed. "But the End Citizens United group says this validates their 2022 complaint. They're calling it a glaring conflict of interest for you to fundraise to pay off these debts while serving in the White House. What's your response?" Karoline's eyes narrowed. "I'm not fundraising for anything. My focus is on communicating President Trump's agenda. The media's obsession with rehashing old campaigns is a distraction from the real issues, like the Democrats' mismanagement of a billion-dollar campaign that left them $20 million in debt. Maybe you should ask Kamala Harris why her vendors are still waiting to be paid." The room erupted in murmurs, reporters scribbling furiously. Karoline had deflected, but she knew it wouldn't be enough. The story was gaining traction on X, with posts like one from @X-ray_media pointing out the irony of Trump attacking Harris's phantom debt while Leavitt's $326,370 went unaddressed. Another user, @Gabel06974963, had called out Trump directly. "Donald Trump needs to worry about Karoline Leavitt paying the $326,370 she owes and stop lying on Kamala Harris claiming she owes money that she doesn't." As Karoline left the briefing room, her phone buzzed with a text from her husband, Nicholas Riccio. "Stay strong, babe. We'll get through this." Nicholas, a real estate developer worth millions, had been a rock during her campaign and now in her White House role. But even his support couldn't shield her from the growing storm. That evening, in a quiet corner of Mar-a-Lago, Trump sat with Stephen Miller and a few trusted aides, sipping Diet Coke and scrolling through Truth Social. The Harris debt story was trending, just as he'd hoped, but so was Leavitt's scandal. "This is bad, folks," Trump said, shaking his head. "Karoline's a star, but this debt thing, it's a loser. The fake news is having a field day. We need to fix this, and fast." Miller nodded. "We can spin it, sir. Frame it as a witch hunt by the Democrats and their allies at End Citizens United. Tie it to Harris's own financial mess. Make it a both sides story, dilute the focus on Karoline." Trump grinned. "I like it. And let's keep pushing the Harris debt angle. $20 million. Can you believe it? She had Oprah, Beyoncé, all these big names, and still lost. Bigly. Let's make sure everyone knows it." As the aide strategized, Karoline sat alone in her office, staring at a framed photo of her and Nicholas with their newborn son. The weight of the scandal pressed down on her. She'd risen so far, so fast, from a small-town New Hampshire girl to the White House press secretary. But now, her past was catching up. The FEC filings were damning: $46,748 owed to Axiom Strategies, $518 to Axe Capital, and $200,000 in donor refunds that should have been processed years ago. The campaign's failure to report the excessive contributions for 3 years was a violation of federal law, and the media smelled blood. Karoline's phone rang, and she saw her treasurer's name on the screen. "Robert," she said, her voice sharp. "What the hell is going on? You told me this was under control." "It is, Karoline," Robert Phillips III replied, his tone defensive. "The amendments were necessary to correct double filings. We're working with the FEC. There's a conciliation agreement in the works. You're not personally liable, and we'll settle the debts." "Settle them how?" she snapped. "I can't fundraise now, it's a conflict of interest. And the media's already saying I'm grifting, just like they say about the president. This is a nightmare." Robert sighed. "We'll figure it out. Maybe Nicholas can help. He's got the resources." Karoline's stomach twisted. Nicholas had already loaned the campaign $1,000, still unpaid. Asking him to cover more felt wrong, especially with the media sniffing around their marriage. At 32 years her senior, Nicholas was an easy target for gossip, and she refused to let him become collateral damage. "I'll handle it," she said, hanging up. But as she stared at the Notice article, she was. In San Francisco, Kamala Harris met with her inner circle in a hotel suite. The mood was grim, but Harris was defiant. "Trump thinks he can embarrass me with this debt nonsense," she said, pacing. "But he's got his own problems. Leavitt's in deep, and we can use that. If they want to talk about campaign finance, let's talk about all the skeletons in their closet." Jen O'Malley Dillon nodded. "We've got allies at End Citizens United who can keep the pressure on Leavitt. And we can push back on the debt narrative. The FEC filings show we had $118 million in the bank as of October 16. The $20 million figure is unverified, and we're working to settle any outstanding vendor payments." Harris smiled thinly. "Good. Let's get that out there. And let's make sure the media knows about Leavitt's $326,370. If Trump wants to play the unity card, let's show the world his press secretary's got her own mess to clean up." As the meeting wrapped, Harris's phone buzzed with a notification from X. A post by @BillEaster10 caught her eye. Donald Trump claims Kamala Harris owes #campaign debt. Karoline Leavitt owes $326,370 and failed to disclose it for 3 years. Do not share. @Karoline Leavitt is on a #taxpayer-funded #Scottish vacation. The claim about a Scottish vacation was news to Harris, but it didn't matter. The point was clear, the narrative was shifting, and Leavitt's scandal was gaining traction. Over the next few days, the story exploded. On X, users debated fiercely, with some defending Leavitt as a victim of bureaucratic errors and others accusing her of deliberate misconduct. The mainstream media ran with the story, with outlets like Raw Story and the New Republic hammering Leavitt's hidden debts and questioning her fitness for the press secretary role. Trump, meanwhile, doubled down on his offer to help Harris, posting on Truth Social, "Kamala Harris blew $1 billion and still lost. Sad. We'll help her pay her debts, because that's what winners do. #mega. But the strategy was backfiring. The more Trump focused on Harris's alleged debt, the more attention Leavitt's scandal received. By July 28, 2025, the FEC announced it was reviewing Leavitt's amended filings, and rumors swirled of potential fines in the tens of thousands. Karoline faced daily questions from the press, each one chipping away at her carefully crafted image. In a private moment, Karoline confided in Nicholas. "I didn't sign up for this," she said, her voice breaking. "I wanted to serve, to make a difference. Now I'm a punchline." Nicholas took her hand, his eyes steady. "You're tougher than this, Karoline. You've faced worse. We'll pay off the debts if we have to. My business can handle it. And then you keep doing what you do best, fighting for what you believe in. Karoline nodded, but doubt lingered. Paying off the debts might clear the financial burden, but the political damage was done. And with Trump's own controversies swirling. Tariffs, Middle East deals, Epstein file. In Washington, Harris watched the chaos unfold with a mix of satisfaction and caution. She knew better than to gloat. The 2024 loss had been a bitter pill, and the debt rumors, even if exaggerated, hurt her image. But Leavitt's scandal was a gift, a chance to shift the narrative. At a press conference in Los Angeles, she took a subtle jab. "I'm focused on uniting Americans, not pointing fingers," she said. "But those who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. Financial transparency is critical, whether it's $1 billion or $326,370. The crowd murmured, and the clip went viral. On X, at X-ray_media posted, FEC filings, Harris's $1 billion campaign owed $0. Trump's team raised $400 million but blew $10 million on private jets since July 24 plus $20 million on. The post cut off, but the message was clear, both sides had their financial skeletons, but Leavitt's were more exposed. As the summer of 2025 wore on, the dueling scandals became a political soap opera. Trump's offer to help Harris faded from the headlines, overshadowed by Leavitt's FEC troubles and questions about her husband's role in her campaign. Karoline worked tirelessly to regain her footing, delivering sharp briefings and deflecting questions with practiced ease. But the shadow of the debt lingered, a reminder that in politics, every misstep has a price. Harris, meanwhile, used the moment to rebuild her image. She spoke at rallies, met with donors, and quietly worked to settle her campaign's accounts. The $20 million debt figure remained unverified, but her team's efforts to pay vendors quelled some of the criticism. She knew the road ahead was long, but she was a fighter, and she wasn't done yet. In the end, the story wasn't about the money, not really. It was about power, perception, and the endless game of one-upmanship that defined Washington. Trump and Harris, Leavitt and her creditors, all were players in a drama where debts, both financial and political, were never truly settled. They were merely leveraged, spun, and weaponized for the next round. And as the sun set over Mar-a-Lago, Trump scrolled through X, chuckling at the latest memes. "This is why I love politics," he said to no one in particular. "It's the greatest show on earth."